Hello, teacher and classmates. My name is Graciela Herrera, and today my classmate and I are going to present the chapter number 14 of the book Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence. So, we are about to finish this story full of emotions, and I have to say that this chapter is one of them because it's very sad. So, let's start. After 2 months in Sheffield, Mrs. Morel and Paul decided to return to their home in Everwich. Paul returned to Sheffield because of work, and that's when Dr. Ansel told him about Dawes disease and the few hope that he had of life. So Paul decided to visit him because even if they had fought before, he felt a kind of connection or kind of connection with his rival. At the beginning, when Dawes saw him, he was very surprised and he wanted to know what was the purpose of his visit. When they start talking, Dawes was very shy and insecure because of Paul's visit. But then the conversation turned very relaxed and normal. So they were talking about life and death. Morel decided to tell Clara about his visit to Dawes, who was Clara's husband. So they went on a date, and while they were taking dinner, Paul told Clara about Dawes disease, and she was in shock, and she felt very guilty. So they end their dinner and decided to go for a walk. So from one moment to another, their relationship turned really bad because she felt guilty because she knew she was a bad wife with such a lovely person. And even if she was rude, cold, and a bad wife, like I said before, Dawes loved her so much. So that's why she felt guilty. Paul and Clara talked about that while they were walking. And then Clara realized her mistake because she told to herself that she deserved how bad Paul treated her because Paul treated her like nothing, and she said to herself that she deserved that because she was a bad person with Dawes. So Clara told Paul that she understood that Dawes loved her much better than he does. And when Paul heard that, he felt very angry because he always wanted to be better than Dawes because he wanted her and he wanted her just for him. So he was so angry that he left her in the middle of their walk. After that discussion, Clara went to see her husband as soon as she can. She gave him flowers, money, and fruit, but it was not a success. So when she saw her husband in that state, she wanted to do restitution. So she kneeled in front of Dawes. And when Dawes saw her weakness, he felt pleasure because of that. In the other hand of the story, Mrs. Morel got really worse every day. She knew she was dying, Paul knew she was dying, but they kept a happy atmosphere, and they seemed to be happy because they have each other. Paul took great care of her mother, and he was always looked up for her. He had always been very close to his mother since he was a child. While he was working, he was with her in her room, and sometimes when they exchanged glances, they felt very lucky to have each other, to have that relationship between mother and son. So after several days of Mr. Morel pain, she decided to pretend that she was okay when she was not okay. So she went downstairs for tea, she went downstairs to the garden, or she just stayed in the living room. Some days, she thought a lot about the past, remarked on her hatred for her husband. And then the pain appeared once again, and she had to be on the bed every day, and she spent all day without saying a word. Sometimes Paul felt really bad, physically bad, but he didn't know what it could be, all that discomfort he felt. But he put it aside. So while Paul was going through these difficult times, he begged for Clara's company. He longed for Clara's company because she gave him peace, and he felt okay with her company. But she had decided to take a cold and rude attitude towards him. So basically, he felt alone, and he was alone. One day, while Paul and Clara were talking at the work, she reminded him of her birthday, which was that day. So Paul decided to propose the plan to go to the coast as a gift for forgetting it, and she accepted. When they were at the beach, when they were alone, he released everything he carried inside, and he needed to take out all that bad feelings that he had inside. So when Clara heard him, she realized how hard this was being for Mr. Morel and also for Paul. She know Mr. Morel know that she was dying, but she wants to keep living. She didn't want to go to the other side. He didn't want to leave this world, and she didn't want to leave her family. So it was very hard for her, and it was like a suffering. And Paul knew that it would be not easy it will be not easy for her to rest in peace. Paul went to see Doss once or twice, and he didn't appear with his hands empty. Sorry. So one day while they were playing, Clara was mentioned for the first time in their conversation. So it was a rival's conversation, but Doss seemed to have given up on it, and all that he said was that he had won her in his own way. I mean that Paul won her in his own way. But the truth is that Clara hated Paul so much because of all the pain that he caused to her. So they clarified that, and then after starting another round of the game, they decided to talk about what happened the night that they fought. They clarified what happened on that night, and thus ended the game. Paul said goodbye and decided to walk home. The closer he was, the more tired he was, although he didn't know it anymore, because he felt that he was walking out of this world, because he was feeling bad once again. He felt all that discomfort in his body again. When he got home, he went upstairs to see his mother. He found her away because she couldn't sleep. So he laid down next to her. He was pampering her, in order to give her a little peace and in order to help her to fall asleep and to rest. As you can see, Paul was a very affectionate son. Days passed and Paul didn't have a great time. So one day, Miriam, his girlfriend, sent a card to him, and he decided to visit her. When Miriam saw him, she was very surprised of his condition. But anyway, she received him warmly. They start talking about his mother, but then she expected to have much more contact with him. But Paul didn't want that, so he just walked away. December came, and with it snow. They no longer had a nurse, but Paul and Annie shared the responsibility of take care of Mr. Morel. In the afternoons, many friends of Annie and Paul arrived home and enjoy laughing, playing, and making fun of each other. So they spent a really good time. When Paul remembered his mother, he ran upstairs to see if she needed something. So she let him touch her wrist to feel her pulse, which was quite weak. So at this point, Mr. Morel was very delicate and full of suffering. So Paul decided to ask the doctor if he could give her something to end that pain. But the doctor said that it would be better to wait until she passed away. Uh, and that they don't want that because it was hard for them to see their mother, to see their mother in that state. So she they don't have another option, and they wait until she passed away. So the next day, Paul decided to go for a walk. He was in the middle of the forest, watching the sunset, full of pain and full of thought, telling to himself that maybe that day his mother will die. And he enjoyed the rest of the sunset with a little donkey that appeared in the middle of the woods. So this is all for me, and my classmate is going to continue. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jose Armando Lopez Sandoval, and today I am going to talk about the chapter 14 of Songs and Lovers. I gotta mention that this is the second part of the video, and I'm going to talk about the most relevant events that happen in this chapter, and I'm gonna give my opinion about it. So let's start it. Let's go in context. It says that day Paul was in the house with his mother, and it says that day the doctor came to look at her. In that moment, it says that Paul was taking the pulse of her mother, and it says that when he was taking the pulse of her mother, he noticed that her pulse was very regular, that were some intervals between them. He felt a strong pulse and a weak one, like a sound and an echo, he said. Well, later it says that Paul asked to the doctor if they could give her something to put an end to it, because he was not able to continue looking at her suffering by her illness, and also he was tired of being taking care of her mother. But the doctor asked to Paul, saying no, that they could not give her something to put an end to it. Well, after that, it says that Paul went out, and he went throughout the country, throughout the woods, over the snow, and it says that in that moment he saw a sunset, and he thought that maybe that day her mother was gonna die, but she won't. Later on that day, it says that Paul returned to the house, and that day the nurse didn't come, and the nurse was the person that set her mother down. Well, in that moment, it says that Paul and Annie went upstairs, and it says that they went into the sick room to look at her, and they asked her if they could settle her down. The answer of the mother was yes. It says that Paul saw her mother like a little girl. Well, Paul moved her mother from one side to the bed to the other side, and in that moment, Annie made the bed of that side. Then it says that they moved it to the other side and they made the other half of the bed. Well, after that, it says that Paul said to his mother that now she will sleep, and the mother answered, saying, yes, now I will sleep. Well, later on, Annie and Paul went out, and Paul said to Annie that if she noticed something is happening, that she have to wake up him because he was going to sleep. Well, after a while, Paul went to sleep, and it says that after some minutes he woke up with the whispers of Annie saying, Paul, Paul, wake up. You have to come and look at her. Well, It said in that moment Paul split out of the bed and he went upstairs to look at her mother. He went into the room, and when he went into the room, he looked her mother laying down in the bed, but with her mouth a little bit open. And it says that he was breathing like snoring, and there were some intervals between her breathing. Well, both of them went out of the room, and Annie said that it was horrible, that she could not continue in that situation, that she could not uh, continue taking care of her mother. Well, the other day Paul said that he was going to give all the morphia to her mother. Well, that day it says that Paul went upstairs and he took all the morphia, all the pills, and he went downstairs. He said that he took all the pills and he crushed them until powder. And it says that he put it in a glass of milk. And it says that he went upstairs and he went into the sick room, and it says that he approached to his mother and he gave her the glass of milk. It says that he put it between her lips, and it says that the mother started drinking the milk. But in that moment, it says that the mother looked at Paul, saying that the taste of the milk was bitter. Well, Paul answered to her mother, saying that it was a new draught that the doctor recommended to give her. Well, the mother was like a little girl, and she do all the things that Paul said, and she drink all the milk with the morphia inside. Well, after that, Paul said that he was going to give her a new glass of milk to take out that taste bitter of the milk of the draft. Well, it says that he went upstairs, and in that moment it says that Annie approached to him, and she asks him if the mother drink all the milk with the morphia, and Paul said yes. And it says that in that moment both of them start laughing like little kids. Well, after that, he took a new glass of milk and he went upstairs. In that moment, he went with Annie, and it said that they went in the room. And it says that Miss Morel asked Annie that that new draft was bitter. Well, they went out, and it says that the other day the nurse came to look at her. Well, it says that in that moment Paul went out the house and he went to sit down in the neighbor house. Well, it says that Annie was also downstairs, and just the nurse and Arthur was upstairs. Well, after a moment, it says that Annie uh, crossed the yard crying, saying, Paul, Paul, she's gone. It says that in that moment, Paul stand up and he went into the house. It says that in a quick moment, he went into her mother's room, and it says that he went in and he approached to his mother. It says that in that moment, when he approached, he took his mother in her arms, and it says that he said, my love, my love. Well, in that moment, he heard the doctor or the nurse behind him saying, now she's better. Like saying that now she was in other place, in a better place, that now she was not suffering. Well, after that, it says that Paul went out and he said that now it's he has to uh, do all the things for her funeral. He said that there was letters to write and things to do. Well, it says that later, when the relatives began to come to the funeral, um, in that day they buried her in a big storm. Well, after that, it says that Paul went to the house after the funeral to supply the guests with drinks. It says that in that moment, the father went to sit down with Mr. Morel, with Miss Morel relatives. They were people of a high class, and the father said to their guests that he tried to give her everything and to support her, and he doesn't regret nothing that he do. And it's really sad how the end of the mother, because who could imagine that his son kill her, giving her all the morphia. And it's really sad. And when I read that part, I was in shock, because I don't think that a son could do that to just for take out the responsibility, or just for giving her a great end. So, and that's it. That's what happened in this chapter. I hope you enjoy.